There's so many classic vampire characters. Dracula, Lestat, Carmilla, Moondoggy. Before I begin, this film is a guilty pleasure for me. It's a goofy, low-budget, weird vampire flick that has beach bum Adam West as a vampire slayer nicknamed the Big Kahuna. So what's the story? Frankie, an 18-year-old, is left home alone for the very first time all summer long while his parents travel because he is finally a man. He's trustworthy enough to take care of things while they are gone. You know what that means? Babes and booze on the beach all day, every day. They even have black tape beer. My favorite! Unfortunately, this plan is foiled one night when Frankie and his friend Bogey are on the beach, and Bogey is attacked by a bat. Freaked out about the bite, Bogey ends up reassured by a stranger on the beach that he knows a lot about bites and he'll be fine. This stranger is Eric Von Zipper, but his friends call him Moondoggy. Seriously, whoever wrote this movie had a thing for 60s beach flicks. So Moondoggy tries to lure the two away to his beach blanket where he promises a party and has two of the most righteous babes. Bogey, being led by his pants, tries to follow and doesn't pick up on several obvious clues that Frankie is giving that they shouldn't go with a random guy trying to lure them to a secluded section of the beach in the middle of the night, and tells him that he has tickets to a Kiss concert and they need to get out. So Moondoggy says, "Hey, no problem, after the concert, swing by." Bogey, again being a fucking idiot, seriously kid, did no one teach you about stranger danger? Gives Moondoggy Frankie's address and tells him to make sure that he, brings the babes. Frankie is rightfully pissed about this, and yet forgives Bogey a little bit later after some friendship bonding. They crash on Frankie's couch, drunk and filled with junk food, forgetting about Moondoggy and his babes. I guess Bogey leaves because even later in the night, Frankie wakes up alone to howling, which he thinks is just his dog Fluffy, and then he carries him around as he inspects the house. Truthfully, I do things like this with my dog too. Dogs ward off vampires. Now Moondoggy shows up and acts all creepy and assertive, and at first Frankie is freaked out and tries to talk over him, but the power of pussy is too powerful, and the two hotties with Moondoggy convince Frankie to let them stay in his parents' bedroom. There's also Bruno, a creepy Renfield-type human character that shows up, and every time he is just there, I just get creeped out.
Yoo-hoo. Nighty-night. Don't let the little bed bugs bite.
He basically does all of the Count's bidding, and progressively he kills all of the pets in the area and eats them. In fact, in his first scene, he ruins the kitchen and covers everything in blood. Like, I'm not a slaughterhouse type person. I've never been to one, but I'm sure if you're just killing like one tiny baby kitten, it's not going to cover every single thing in blood. You know, it's kind of also like how Renfield used to eat insects. You know, get it? Homage to other vampire stuff. I think he's meant to be sympathetic, you know, like we see him walked all over, he's clearly afraid of the Count, he sleeps in the trash. However, he's less sympathetic when he kills the gardener, Nacho. Yes, there is a gardener named Nacho, and he has no speaking part. We also get to meet Dee Dee, Frankie's girlfriend. She isn't in the film much and mostly acts as a battling point between Frankie and Moondoggie. She's cute enough and nice enough, but doesn't really do much in the film except share her first sexual experience with Moondoggie instead of Frankie, which, adds to the conflict between the two. I think Frankie is meant to be a fan of horror and vampires, by the way, because he actually is seen reading a book called Rap Sessions with the Vampire. I see what you did there. He sees the two women. Their names are Solka and Katrina. Yes, one is played by Carmen Electra, but she's barely in the film and she really doesn't do much. And he sees them kill a man named Disco Rick. But he chalks this up to a dream, given he hasn't seen any of them since they moved in, and he's been reading a vampire book. Even though he hears on the radio the following morning that Rick's body was found in a canyon drained of all its blood. So, I'm not entirely sure how much time has passed, but one day Frankie has had enough. Bruno creeps him out, and pets have been going missing, and he goes to try to confront Moondoggie because he catches Bruno blacking out his windows with, bags or something, and it just pisses him off that they're taking such liberties with his house. So he runs into his parents' bedroom to confront them and finds 3 coffins and a fuck ton of candles, which would be a fire hazard. By the way, why are they having candles going when they're asleep? I mean, the whole point of having candles is to illuminate, and if you're asleep, there's no real reason to have candles going, unless they're scented candles and a lot of them fart in their sleep. He tries to get answers out of Bruno, and only learns that the coffins came from Queens and have been in Eric's, Moondoggie's family for a long time. He then goes to his girlfriend and tries to ask her if she believes in vampires, because, that's a totally normal conversation, and they both agree that there's no such thing as vampires. Only for Frankie to leave 2 seconds later with the line, "I've got to figure out how to get those damn vampires out of my house." Now, he goes to a psychic at first, and they refer him to the Big Kahuna. The Big Kahuna is Van Helsing Meister, a descendant of Van Helsing, whom Bram Stoker dropped the Meister when he wrote Dracula, because the Meister didn't roll off the tongue. And he has this ridiculous answering machine that has a dial for if you're pestered by poltergeists, or if you're certain by Satan, or are you victimized by vampires, which... personally, I actually really enjoyed that gag. I thought that was delightful. But he leaves a message on the phone, and then he goes back home. And then they try to give Moondoggie and Frankie a bonding scene where Moondoggie is on the phone back and forth between the phone and Frankie can't really get a word in edgewise. And I actually really like this developmentally because it shows that Moondoggie, well, yeah, he could care for Frankie in his own kind of way, he also is a vampire count who mostly cares about himself. And he does his best to try to schmooze Frankie into being complacent by offering his 2 hotties to Frankie as a surprise, while he goes to seduce Dee Dee, who happened to walk onto the property when Frankie didn't answer her phone call and she got worried. She sees him making out with these 2 chicks, she's distraught, she goes off, and that's apparently just... yeah, so... I mean, Frankie, I guess, gets away, by the way, before any actual sex happens, even though it very much looks like there was actual sex and he fell asleep afterwards, but no, we later find out that I guess they were just making out and he fell asleep? Now, why does Eric Von Zipper, aka Moondoggie, seduce Dee Dee? I don't know, to get more control over Frankie, I guess? I'm thinking he has mesmerizing powers as well, which is why Dee Dee goes so easily into Eric's arms. I mean, I give her some credit that she kind of questions it, and she does try to kind of fight it, but at that moment she was emotionally compromised, so I can kind of forgive her, weak state of mind at that time. I also think that the girls have some kind of mesmerizing power, which is why Frankie goes so easily with them whenever they're trying to get him to do something. Frankie ends up at the Big Kahuna's place after escaping from the 2 girls, and seeks advice how to get rid of these blood-sucking squatters. And Adam West comes in wearing a Hawaiian shirt and speaking in beach bun. Tubular. He plays it campy and serious all in one go, which is amusing to say the least. Adam West, rest in peace, man. Genuinely, rest in peace. You were a good actor. Now, Frankie comes back from the Big Kahuna's place to a surprise party where all of his neighbors were invited. I guess maybe they were brainwashed. And he doesn't really know what to do. This is where he finds his girlfriend and Eric having sex in the sauna, after which Eric and Dee Dee come out, and Dee has 2 clear bite marks on her neck, as she is mindlessly following Eric. This, above everything else apparently going on, breaks Frankie and he flees his house and sleeps on the beach. Okay, I also have to make mention that clearly his parents are loaded. They are traveling across Europe for an entire summer. They live in LA in a massive house that has a gate with a pool, fireplace, a decent spot of land, and a sauna. Wow! Now he ends up eventually going back to his house during daylight hours thinking that all the vampires are going to be asleep. But no, they're actually all up, given that the windows are all blocked, and Dee Dee is sitting there mindlessly, bites clearly visible, voice kind of altered in a kind of creepy-ish way, watching static on the television. I guess when Eric bites someone, they don't become a proper vampire? I mean, he doesn't have a modulated voice, he isn't kind of mindless, but neither is Bogey and some pet shop guy that had been attacked by the girls earlier, who are now part of the living dead as well. Yeah, Bogey ended up getting with the 2 hotties that he wanted, but they bit him, and so wasn't the pet shop guy. I mean, why didn't they just kill them? And why is it being a vampire suddenly makes Bogey and the others want to kill this friend of theirs? They all instantly gang up on Frankie, and they all want to just eat him. I mean, Moondoggy actually still thinks they're friends by this point and rescues him from the ravenous horde of ex-friends. But that is until Frankie stupidly lets slip that he went to see the Big Kahuna, and Eric gets pissed. It's the only time in the entire movie that we actually see him with vampire-ness, and he goes to kill Frankie for this insult, that he went to go and see a vampire slayer. Until the Big Kahuna arrives to stake him, and then gets distracted by his dick, because the 2 hotties show up in lingerie, and Eric offers them in exchange for his own life, which leaves the killing to Frankie, who uses a magical staff that the Kahuna brought with him to kill the Count, and restores everyone back to normal without any memory of anything that had happened. What? Okay, all in all, this movie is stupid, campy, silly as fuck. It doesn't have the best of pacing. I mean, I think that for all intents and purposes, it tells its story fairly well. I think what would have made it work better is if we got to see more interactions between Frankie and Moondoggy, and more examples of the vampires doing, well, vampire stuff, not just Bruno going around killing pets. I mean, as sad as that is, you know? I think that if Frankie was driven more and more insane as the film progressed, it would have worked much better, since that is what is suggested in the film, with him passing off everything he sees as a dream, or he tries to rationalize what he's seen in some way. But it happens so quickly. You know, he's stuck with these vampires, the main vampire does like him, and has strict orders that he's not to be touched, which could lead to a lot of tension between that lead vampire and his underlings, but at the same time, maybe more and more people start going in the area missing, you know, more people do. Frankie gets cornered by the police at one point, asking about the missing people, and stuff like that could have really built up this story and added to the tension. There just isn't as much as there could be. The film's effects are low budget, but I'm not going to be too harsh on that. I'm not going to dock too many points. It clearly had no budget to begin with. So we only get a few actual effects, and I did like that Eric wasn't really shown to be a vampire until he and Frankie have their falling out towards the end of the movie, and he goes to kill him. I mean, it barely lasts a second, but it does happen after we aren't really shown much in terms of his specific vampirism. We're always shown his minions, but never his actual connection to that, you know, aside from his effects on other people, namely Dee Dee. So if you're looking for something a little cheesy, check this out.